she is. And now we have a quick message from our sponsors at Fierté Montreal. Hooray. Merci.
Talking about elevator music.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. You're logging into Reimagining Afterhours with Also Cool and Friends. My name is Zoe Ardropoulos-Hunter. I'm one of the co-founders of alsocoolmag. We are currently a volunteer-operated magazine based in Montreal and Ottawa in Canada. We are operated by 4 queer femmes, and we were founded in 2019. And right now we are currently an online magazine with adjacent endeavors that spread into different radio shows on both FSR and Antennas Radio, an event producing series, as well as different kinds of programming around the city. You can follow us online at alsocoolmag.com or pretty much anywhere on the internet at alsocoolmag. And we've invited a few of our friends from the scene to talk about queer nightlife programming, both in Montreal and abroad, but for the purposes of this conversation, we'll be focusing primarily on Montreal. So I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us, for coming into this panel. And yeah, we're going to get down to business. So to start off, we'll introduce our panelists. So we'll start off with Willow, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, y'all. I'm Willow. I use they, them pronouns. I am a queer community organizer, DJ sometimes when I'm feeling freaky, playwright, all around good time gal from Ottawa. And now I live in Montreal. I've been here for about 6 years. And I'm very passionate about raving. I was once told by a dear friend that I rave enough for several people combined, which is true and I do take as my personal brand that you will catch me almost anywhere at 7 a.m. vibing. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks, Willow. We can move on to Mags, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Mags. My pronouns are she, her, elle en français. I'm an illustrator, I'm a cartoonist, I'm a webcomic drawer, I'm a producer, I'm a singer, songwriter, MC. Some people may know me as one half of Strange Fruits. I am also the original co-founder of Rap Battles for Social Justice, which is an organization that puts on events for social causes alongside musical acts and MCs. I'm also the co-founder of the winter festival Lux Magna, which was founded back in 2017. We had 3 lovely editions before the pandemic. What else do I do? I'm a community organizer. I'm a queer first generation African American, meaning my parents are African and I was born in the States. So that's what that is. I'm a Virgo, so I'm a little neurotic, but I'm a Leo rising, so I'm a good time, I think. I'd like to think. Yeah. Oh, wait, no, I'm also the co-founder of Loop Sessions DMV. How did I forget about that? There's a lot of stuff on my resume. Sometimes I forget. Loop Sessions is actually based in Montreal, and I founded the DMV chapter. And we have monthly events for those who want to learn more about beat making or who want to experiment. So y'all should come through, whether it's the Montreal session or DMV session, open to everybody. It's a fun time. Is that all? I'm sure I'm forgetting something and it'll come up later. So that's all for now.
I would say you're a fun time all the time.
Yay.
Do we want to move on next to Elle, aka NGL Flounce?
Hi, can everyone hear me well? Okay, well, I mean, as you said, I'm called Elle. And my DJ name is NGL Flounce. I use they, them pronouns. So I'm a DJ. I play a lot of different genres. I'm trying to like insert myself more in like the electronic music rave scene. And I also play in like queer events once in a while. I like to play hip hop and pop R&B. And I'm also co-founder of the collective Trans-Pacific Express with my friend Brent, and who's also a DJ, Franslin. And we make events where we showcase city pop and Korean hip hop, so mostly East Asian music in like these kinds of genres. So we made an event in 2019. Right now we're kind of like waiting for the pending to like slow over. We mostly did online events so far. Yeah, and yeah, I like promote once in a while, like mostly through Trans-Pacific Express, but also on my own, I'm gonna start promoting more as well. And I think that's most of it.
Amazing, thank you. Definitely a great source for city pop for those of you that are fans. We can move now to Maryze.
Hi, I'm Maryze. I'm a singer-songwriter. I make bilingual alt pop music, and I'm also part of the founding team of the Diving Bell Social Club, which is a multidisciplinary performance venue in Montreal. I do social media content creation and help organize events once in a while. I'm hoping to do more of that soon. I'm also a writer and a translator, a recent narrator, which has been fun. I'm part of the Hot Tramp family, Hot Tramp represent. And yeah, I don't like to say like TikToker, but I do TikTok stuff sometimes too. It's me. Oh, and my pronouns are she, they, and I'm a Sagittarius sun, Libra rising, and Taurus moon. So do with that what you will.
I feel like we should have a complete separate panel on all of our astrological compatibility. And we can finish off with Sisi Superstar.
Hi, I'm Sisi, aka Sisi Superstar. I use he, they, she pronoun. I'm a visual artist, cartoonist, drag queen, performer, singer, songwriter, event producer. I produce Unicorn and used to produce Stigmata, which was a queer goth night party at Cabaret Berlin. And I'm also a DJ. I DJ hardcore to dark techno, speedcore, to nightcore, all the cores. And I play a little bit of pop PC music sometimes when I do more dance party gigs and stuff. And I'm a Scorpio and I'm a Leo rising. So I don't know, you're gonna have to handle this, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Amazing. This is an exciting panel. I don't know if I can handle it, but let's see what happens. So to move into our first discussion, thank you everyone for your amazing introductions. It's wonderful to have all of our honored guests here. Thank you so much for being friends and family of Also Cool. For everyone who's just joining us now, we're going to move into the first part of our panel discussion, where we will dive into the broad question of how we've all come to define community and what exactly community means to us in the context of how we operate. And maybe this has changed throughout the pandemic, maybe it's expanded, but we can dive into this concept for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the panel. If anyone would like to start off, feel free.
Sure, I can start. So actually, community is really something that I've been talking with fellow DJs and promoters a lot recently, especially like now that events are starting again. And I think we've kind of realized we want really to like, we want to do our events together because we have this focus on community rather than just kind of like wanting to party because we want to party. And yeah, so I kind of, the way we define community, my friends and I, is more like we want to include all the like rave goers and like the like artists who are like in the same scene as us. Like for example, I'm talking more specifically about the electronic music scene, which I'm in right now. And we kind of like, as a promoter, I think we want to consider ourselves as like curators also. We don't curate tracks, we curate artists. And we want to kind of like bring like opportunities, and we want to include artists who are not necessarily like big names or anything, but who's like just stuff we like and want to like have other people enjoy with us. And I think, yeah, I define community in this way, as opposed to like, for example, like events that are for like just pure partying and like less community centered, that will like focus on bringing in, like appealing to as many people as possible by bringing in big names. And then like the focus is more on like, I guess, appealing to a bigger audience, and also revenue in a way, because you know, more audience means more revenue, whereas community centered events will more try and like find something that is beneficial for like all artists, including smaller artists, and like the promoter kind of like comes last in a way. Yeah, that's how I define it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Elle, for starting us off. Does anyone want to branch off of this idea of the concept of community in relation to the concept of entertainment?
Yes, I agree with everything that Elle said. It's very much the mandate of what Lux Magna is or was, in the sense that there are a lot of artists in the city that we're aware of, that we enjoy, and that we feel like deserve more opportunities to share their art with the broader city. And that's basically what Lux Magna came out of. Most of the people that worked on Lux Magna also work on Suoni per il Popolo. And that's how I met them. Strange Fruits had performed for them a few times, and I had curated a few hip hop shows for them. And then we decided, oh, we want to bring something to the city, but in the winter time, because winter is so hard on so many people, especially artists. And we want to like really uplift them and give them a chance to not only share their art, but show people what they're missing out on when they're not being necessarily booked for all the big, you know, conglomerates of summertime festivals, because Montreal is not only a festival city, it's also a university city. And, you know, a lot of these students are, you know, coming for the summer, getting ready for their like semester, and they want to get lit and all that stuff. And it's like, well, there's a lot more to Montreal than just that. And so I think in the sense of community events, it highlights a certain desire to see growth in the people that are part of that community, as opposed to just broadly entertainment focused events that are just kind of focused on like kind of numbers, hitting certain numbers, and, you know, entertaining the masses, and, you know, putting Montreal on the spot on in a certain like global mogul kind of sense. So for me, when I hear a community event, it's like, this is your chance to either see people you haven't seen in a while and expand on those relations you have with them, like those interpersonal relationships, but also those intra-communal relations, and like just, you know, kind of growing together and evolving together and keeping each other accountable and keeping each other safe and making sure we're all heard and things like that. And it's just kind of has that extra to it. So that's kind of what I hear from like communal events, as opposed to just generally entertaining.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that, Mags. Something I'm interested in too, we have a lot of musically involved folks on this panel, but also people who are involved in the world of theater and drag and nightlife in a different sense. So maybe before we move on to more musical folks, Willow or Sisi, did you want to comment on community in your sense of the word and concept?
For sure.
Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, I come from a theater background. I write theater. That's part of my practice. And I, as I mentioned, rave a lot. And I think I get my understanding of community primarily from raving. Nowadays, I also, you know, when I was a teenager, was really involved in Ottawa's local music scene, and that's how I really met most of my community, both in Ottawa and Montreal. But raving will always have my heart. I think there's an unmatched kind of energy and a kind of love that I really haven't experienced anywhere else to that magnitude. And I was actually thinking about this a lot today in preparation for this panel. But an example that I have is right before the pandemic, the last night I went out, there was a big rave. And I'm pretty sure Also Cool, didn't you do like a pop-up there during the day at Vault?
I definitely know Malika was involved with that. Who was
Malika was definitely there. I remember. I was also there. We were all there, but there was a rave called Vault by some friends of ours. And my stepfather had just passed away, and I was really in like the pits of grief. And the only thing I could think to do was go out and have that night and distract myself. And I felt really enveloped in love. Everybody was taking care of each other. It was a party that went till like, I think I was there till 10 a.m. And it was the last rave right before the pandemic. And I remember thinking like, if this is how we're gonna go out, if this is how this ends, like this was the most incredible way to end, because I think that in rave culture, true rave culture, it's like there is nothing more important than each other. And I notice now getting back into raves, which is still very complicated and difficult, I notice that a lot of people are going to raves for the first time and, you know, are perhaps confused about rave etiquette and are disclosing the location on TikTok to hundreds of thousands of people, and, you know, things that in rave culture just don't work because that's how people are put in danger. And now we're trying to find new ways to make sure that it's inclusive, make sure that no one's left behind, that no one doesn't get the invite to the rave, but also make sure that these spaces are safe primarily for queer people, Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, people who are marginalized and are at risk by an essentially illegal activity. A lot of the places raves take place are dangerous and they're hard to find, and there's a lot of risk associated with raving. But you know, to wrap up my thought, I just think that I've learned so much about like what I'm willing to sacrifice for the community and for pleasure and joy and celebration, which I think are ultimately at the like center of everything I do. I think a lot of times community, we come together in crisis, but I also think that there's a lot of beauty in coming together to celebrate and to be happy and to find pleasure, especially for marginalized people where that's like incredibly difficult to cultivate under capitalism. We seek to like find that in the fringes of society, I guess, if I want to say it in a dramatic way. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you for opening a great introduction to the second part of the panel, which will come up very soon. So thank you, Willow, for that introduction to the second, I guess, like larger overarching topic of this conversation. Something that you touched on, which is something that has come up relevantly during the pandemic, would be the sense of community online. I feel like Maryze and Sisi, you could definitely both speak to that. Maryze especially, because you found a lot of recent community via TikTok. So I'm just kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that before, Sisi, we jump into your closing remarks.
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually. I think during the pandemic, obviously everyone was feeling isolated and lonely and finding new ways to connect with community and kind of maintain that sense, especially through the tough winter. And for me, I never thought that I would actually really get on TikTok. It was just kind of, you know, silly for fun. And as much as there are many trolls to also deal with, which is less fun, it has really connected me to people kind of all over with similar interests. And it's actually really helped to cultivate like a safe queer space for me, which I find, you know, normally in the city, like they're very precious, and I think difficult sometimes to find in more like mainstream venues, bigger venues. And so, yeah, that's something that I'm hoping to also carry forth. It's easier to curate your peers, I guess, online, but that's something that, in terms of more of like a musical background for me and coming up in like the DIY scene, those DIY spaces are so important, especially when I first moved to Montreal 4 years ago. You know, places like the Bog and Poisson Noir and La Plante that have all, you know, suffered a bunch. And that's something I'm really interested in, is how to kind of carry forth that sense of community and more of a DIY organization into venues, bigger venues that might allow for artists and promoters to actually create those spaces. Something that I'm interested in helping to develop, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. And you're definitely right in the sense that it's easy to open that world online when we can connect to people in a sense that's so much closer. But I feel like Sisi, you could also comment on that kind of world and the importance of it being cultivated in a real life sense. I know we've spoken about these queer spaces, and I'm curious to hear what community looks like to you and how you've attached to it or the lack thereof throughout the pandemic.
I think like it's been really hard to kind of adjust to being online because I feel like I'm giving that kind of vibe or perspective that I'm giving online very like not a front, but like something that it's like it's not at all what I'm doing in real life. Like what I'm doing in real life, like community for me, I could kind of compare it as a table. It's like sometime when I feel like there was a lot of people, I feel like they didn't have their seat at the table. And I didn't have my seat at the table because I was to this or to that or none of this, none of that. And I felt like I had so many friends that didn't had gigs, that didn't had opportunities to showcase their talent. And for me, community was just like to bring all of this together and try to do something that everyone could have their, like obviously everyone that do events knows that you can't always include every single person every single time, but like basically my goal like as a kind of community raver leader, like partier, I just want to bring people together. It's really the base, and I want for everyone to get compensated for what they're doing and be able to, you know, just express themselves. I come basically from a background of visual arts. So for me, I never had a space in galleries. I never went to school after high school. I don't have like a degree or anything. And I've been very pushed on the side and looked down by the gallery system most of the time. Like I was doing more like DIY galleries or like space that we would rent and do our own stuff. So when it came to um, when I started DJing and doing more stuff, I was like, I want something that people can, like at Unicorn, we had booth that people could sell their stuff. We don't have just like drag performers. We have dancers. We have all kinds of performers. So I just wanted to create something like large that basically was like more representing of what everyone is doing and everything. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for giving an overview of what the sense of community means to you in your respective worlds and practices. I know it's a big question and certainly one that would take more than an hour to dive into. So thanks for entertaining that question. And Sisi, you gave a perfect opening to the next part of the panel. So something we wanted to focus on is also what everyone has been working on or is working towards. So to start off, we're going to give the floor to Maryze to talk about a recent project or an up and coming project that you're working on. So feel free to share what you've been up to as of late, because we're all really interested.
Okay, thank you. I recently put out a new single called FBP, Female Brad Pitt, And the kind of general story behind it for people who don't know is that I had uploaded a demo of it. I worked with Margot, who's a really great producer on the track, and I put up this little demo of like 10 seconds of it on TikTok, and the song is very light, it's very Y2K, you know, it's a bit of like a parody, and all these like really angry, hateful straight dude producers came on and like tore it to shreds, and not just in the sense of like, oh hey, I think you could work on your mix, which is fair, but just like, you are useless, you should quit music, like find another hobby, women don't know how to make music, and like you should just have all your music written by men so that you're not so basic, and just, I don't know, tons of some pretty ugly words too, that it was just like, it was super surprising. And I, you know, definitely took that on as a challenge of being like, okay, well now I'm definitely going to finish this song and put it out there, because I think it's really fun, and I think the people who like it will like it, and I don't really care if the people that it's not for don't like it, especially if they're mean, hateful people. I would rather they not listen to my music anyway. So yeah, so I put that out recently, and we made a music video for it last month that Elle happens to guest star in, as well as Malika, and I think a couple other people here, Jeanette and Sarah here. And yeah, it was just this really beautiful day where a lot of really cool queer women and non-binary artists came together to do this kind of fun dollar store supplied pool party. And yeah, the music video, I'm not editing it, but I tried to throw a trailer together. I'm not a professional editor, but I would like to share a minute of it with you. And it's still very rough. So just so you know, the colors are not like adjusted yet, but I would like to just share a little minute of it. I'm gonna try to figure out this screen sharing business. And hopefully everyone can hear it properly as well. Okay, let me know if this works. Can everyone see that?
Amazing. Thank you,
Excited.
Maryze.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for my bad editing skills.
No, amazing editing skills. And I see Elle and Malika in the background, and also Jay, who's here in the chat, and Sarah. So cute. I love that.
Nice.
We're going to move over to Mags next to talk about a recent project that you've been working on, or an upcoming project that we can keep our eyes out for.
Man, what am I not doing these days? I swear I like moved back to Montreal in March because I was in the States for 3 years. I was in Montreal, then moved back, then came back because of immigration. And we all know how much fun that is. But what have I got going on? So like I said, Loop Sessions, I've been working with Loop Sessions Montreal as well as Loop Sessions DMV. So again, for those who don't know, it's a monthly event where they drop a sample, a record for people to download, and they have like anywhere between 12 to 24 hours to sample it and make a new song. And then at the end of that day, you come online to Zoom, which is being then streamed to like Instagram or Twitch with all the other beat makers, and you guys share your creations and just kind of talk about what you thought of the sample and what your process is and things like that. It's a lot of fun. So Montreal has now 2 sessions a month. One coming up on the 13th is actually in collaboration with Mural, the Mural Festival. So that one has a curated lineup, but if you guys want to go and watch the panel taking place and listen to the beats, that's happening on the 13th. There will be a link in Loop Sessions bio or the Mural Festival bio. I think tickets are $10. But then at the end of the month, they go back to online, and they've got this new mini series called Masterclass, where they have a specific Montreal producer go through their process of creating a beat, and they kind of talk about their creative journey and things like that. And again, they provide a crate for people to then download and sample and make a new beat out of. So far, we've had the likes of Shashu, High Classified, Sabrina Sabotage, and this will be happening for the next little bit till like March. So definitely tune into that. And if you're a producer, I would highly recommend that you come to Loop Sessions Montreal or come to Loop Sessions DMV. Both have their distinct vibes, but both are a lot of fun. So that's really cool. What else? I am currently the programming director for Hip Hop You Don't Stop, which is another festival happening in September. And that's actually kind of where Strange Fruits got our start. It's where we launched our debut EP back in 2014. So this is kind of a full circle moment, very cute. Again, highlighting the importance of community, right? Because it's very much a community festival. And we actually have an event in the works with alsocoolmag. Last year, some people may know that Strange Fruits did an event called Digital Sleepover, where we celebrated our band's anniversary, and we just kind of talked about what it's been like during the pandemic, and we had a little pajama party and a dance party, DJ'd by Molly Gunn. It was a lot of fun, so we'll be doing that again this year. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but there will be more people talking, and there will be 2 DJs, and that should be happening September 19th. So mark your calendars right away for that. That'll be a lot of fun, but the whole festival is going to be a lot of fun. Hip Hop You Don't Stop is coming back from September 16th to September 21st. It'll be a hybrid edition, so there'll be online events, there'll be outdoor events, and yeah, that's all I've got for you today so far. So thank you.
I like a full circle moment. Also, love a pajama party. I'm glad that those have not gone out of style. And I agree with Rebecca's comment, Virgo season, no better time. I agree. Back to school theme, loop sessions / also cool sleepover party sounds like the best time ever. Thank you so much, everyone, for this first intro into our intermission. Next, we're going to dive into discussion part 2. How do we sustain equity and wellness within our communities? I feel like we already dove into some of this in the first part of our discussion. Some of you mentioned the notion of distinguishing entertainment versus community wellness and mutual aid, questions of sustaining proper practices within our respective worlds and communities. And these are all things that are timely now that we are re-entering real life programming, but also I feel like we've all gleaned a lot of really important lessons and times to think about how this can be applied over the pandemic with the challenge of maintaining these practices online. And I know we've all encountered Instagram echo chambers, algorithm issues, et cetera, access to internet, all of these other barriers. But for the better part of the discussion, we can touch on the idea of ideas of mutual aid and community wellness being incorporated into event organizing, because I feel like that's a very crucial part of queer organizing, whether it be music oriented, theater practice, or even dance parties as well. So I'll open the floor to anyone if you'd like to start, and if not, I may choose one of you to start.
I can start. I think I've been thinking a lot about what it means to grieve and heal as a community. I think that's really an important part of event organizing. And someone asked me, like a few months into the pandemic, I was doing a different panel, and they were like, Willow, if the world were to end tomorrow, would you rather be in a bunker and like, you know, wait it out and then emerge from the bunker and you're like the last person on earth? Or would you rather go out on a rooftop party and like just watch the world end? And I immediately, like, I didn't even think about it. I was like, I'm gonna be on that rooftop party. I'm gonna be with all my friends, and I'm gonna know that we're together, and that, you know, despite I don't want the world to end, like, I'll be with people I love. And I think that I apply that a lot to community wellness, the thought that we can't do anything alone. I think the pandemic has taught me that there is so much grief in this world and so much pain, and that it is, we, like, as humans, we are not built to endure that by ourselves. And it's really isolating to be at home and to not be able to go out and see our friends. And as that starts to happen again, I've just felt this like bonkers rejuvenation where I'm like a different person. Like, I feel happier and lighter and more able to like manage my depression because I can see people outside of my apartment. And so I think that's like really core to me in thinking of wellness, is that nothing we do as community organizers, as event organizers, as artists should be alone or for ourselves. For me, it is always for the good of other people, the healing of other people. And I think that applies to mutual aid as well. You know, there's tons of conversations happening right now about like our GoFundMe's going too far. And I just think that that's kind of like a, I don't want to say it's arbitrary, but it's, to me, it's not the point. I think that if we as a community have the means to sustain ourselves beyond capitalism, if we have the means to like ease each other's pain and you know, pull people out of poverty and send people to school and make sure people have food on their table, like, that's magic to me. That's really special that we as people can do that for each other. In the same way that it's magic that we can go to shows and see people we haven't seen in a year or 2 years and feel like it's been 5 minutes. And that's the beauty of what we do. And I think that's why artists are so important. And that's why, you know, as the world literally feels like it's ending all around us, I think it's more important than ever to remember, as I said before, like, celebration and joy is key. And we can't, well, we can, but I believe that we should not succumb to the feeling of like helplessness, because if I have seen anything in my life, it's that like nothing is beyond the magic of community. And there is so much that can be done through our work. And that's really special. And whether that work be, you know, people who are actively organizing or actively attending, or just audiences, like, audiences are so key. And I think like it's an ecosystem that really just is self-sustaining in a way that's important to maintain.
I like that notion of resilience that you touched on, and I definitely agree that there's nothing more powerful than the magic of community and like the multiple senses, whether it be people attending events or people programming events or people on the sidelines of events. I agree that it's an ecosystem, and I saw a lot of you nodding. So if anyone wants to interject on Willow's start to the conversation, please do.
Yeah, like personally, I have a point to make towards what you were saying. I remember at one of the events we were throwing, and when I say we, because I'm not the only one in Unicorn, I'm actually doing it with four other beautiful people, which is Awful, Samantha Blake, Maryze, and Odile Myrtil, which is her resident DJ, and my bestie since I'm like 16, MySpace. And I remember at one of her events, after the event, I remember that we didn't even make money, and we had to pay the place we booked and everything. And I was like, oh shit, like I was kind of overwhelmed with like the whole thing. But then just like at the end of the party, the feeling that I had with like everyone, and like just like knowing that we made that, we did that, like people, like just like having the feedback of people, like how they enjoyed themselves, how they felt like they could express themselves, like because I feel like when I was younger, around like 16, I was living in the suburbs, but I was going out in Montreal, and I found like kind of the kind of music, the kind of space, the kind of people I wanted to like hang around, and the stuff I wanted to do. And it's like, I felt like for some people it was kind of lacking at some point. And it was like, okay, but what is at some point it was like, what is happening in Montreal right now for younger people? Where are they going to express themselves? Where are they going to dress up and, you know, like be crazy? So it was like time to do that. And I think that's the most like the biggest privilege I get to do with event organizing, is to do that and to share that. And yeah.
You touched on an important topic, which I feel like is all too familiar to everyone in this panel, which is the idea of burnout and the idea of sustaining ourselves in order to sustain our communities. And I feel like everyone on this panel could speak to that. And I'd like to pass the mic over to Elle, because I feel like you do a lot of self-generated stuff being a DJ. And I know that DJing can be so much work because you're heading the party, you're bringing the vibe, but you're also carrying like a lot of the, I guess, the heavy lifting of event curation. And I know that you mentioned curating with other artists, so I'm curious to know your thoughts on that.
Right. Actually, I find the DJing part is not like the hardest part in a way, like being, you know, in front of people. Like, of course it takes work, like that's what I do, right? And like selecting tracks and like making transitions and like, you know, maybe dancing a little bit, you know, bringing like the atmosphere to the party. I think that's just very enjoyable. I think the more difficult part of it is more like the networking actually, and like actually getting into like the parties, like getting kind of like hired, you know, for parties. Is like the part that's like hardest when you're like starting, because I'm kind of like, I think I'm like one of the younger people on this panel for sure. So like getting into the scene is just like, I'm still kind of doing it right now, you know, like I've thrown events and I've like have this kind of experience, but I still like don't have that big of a network. So, and I just like, I kind of tend to notice sometimes it's like people tend to hire their friends only, and then just like entering the spaces is like makes it very difficult because people already have kind of like their cliques a little bit, and then they will like hire you sometimes, but it's just getting there is hard. So, but I think there are people who like really will do the work of like, even if they don't throw events themselves, they will like put your name in and they will like be like, oh, this person does cool stuff and I want to see them play. And then they will like help make the scene more like, yeah, more like community centered and like more diverse also in some ways. And yeah, so this is like, I did think definitely like, I'm like very grateful to this. And I feel like I want to do this to other people too, like growing in this space. Like I want to throw my own events. I want to like put up people that I also have found and I'm like, oh, I really like their stuff too, you know, and we can like support each other. And I think I've been doing this with my collective because like, so we're mostly two people actually. We do work with other people sometimes, but like the main is just like, we're just like two co-founders being like the main team in a way for Trans-Pacific Express. And both of us, like we've been kind of doing music for a long time on our own, but we never really put our stuff out there. So that's really like, we kind of put this project together and kind of like a way to uplift each other as well as like just throwing events that we want to see in the city. So sometimes you just need to do it yourself. Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with this. I was talking about, oh yeah, mutual aid, I guess. Just like, I think networking is kind of like at the base of all this, is trying to find people who will like, you know, support you, and then you can like support them in return and like try and support other people. And that's kind of how things get done, how like parties get thrown. Like even like right now I'm kind of planning events and we're kind of thinking, oh, I can ask this person who knows this person for like a good venue to do things, or, you know, like I'm like borrowing some equipment from someone else, and in exchange I can do some service for them at another event. And it kind of like becomes kind of like a trade in a way, and that makes it like very sustainable.
Yeah, agreed. And you bring up a great point with that. Just for everyone that's following the panel, we do have a little bit of leeway to go a little bit over the 8 o'clock mark. So I think I'm going to dive into that just so everyone has a chance to speak on this point, and also show some of the projects they've been working on. But Maryze and Mags, I feel like both of you are no strangers to the concepts of networking, both in your respective practices, just because they're both so involved with other people. And I feel like so much of what it means to work in DIY scenes, no matter what the music is just being involved with other people. And I was wondering, just branching off of what Elle was talking about, if you had any advice for some of, I mean, I don't want to age you as like the older people in this panel, because I think we're all really young, but for maybe some of our younger
Oh my God.
or panelists, if you have any advice on things that you've learned in the last.
Yeah, I don't mind being aged. I tell people I'm 50 all the time. You should just listen. As long as you're listening, you know. My advice is definitely, because networking is such a huge part of how I operate. Like, you ask anybody that I've worked with, it's like, oh, you know Mags? Yeah, I met her at this show and we did this, and then they cross path. Like literally all of Lux Magna, you'd be surprised how many artists leave Lux Magna then working together. That's my whole MO. My advice is just don't be shy to like go to things that aren't necessarily your scene, because you have no idea what those people can do to not only enrich your lives, but enrich your way of thinking and operating in the city. You know, you go to like a DIY rave event and you would never think to maybe go to like a bluegrass like country show, but you realize that they have so many different kind of connections that can help you get you and where your community needs to be, and vice versa. It's like, oh well, we never thought of, like, Strange Fruits opened for like these 5 kids in a country band at the, what is it, the Rialto a few years ago, and through that we got through so many connections. It's like, never be afraid to step outside of your scene, you know, because Montreal as an island is very small, and it's made up of so many different little scenes, and you'd be surprised that you might be the fil conducteur in all those scenes, very much how I am. So don't be afraid to step outside of your scene or your aesthetic or whatever y'all kids want to call it. Just mix it up a little bit is my advice.
Yeah, I definitely feel like getting out of your scene is such a good way to expand, and I feel like it's probably how, I mean, I'm guessing here, but I feel like it's probably how all of us discovered something about ourselves in the last few years. I mean, I've known Willow personally since we were little teens in Ottawa, and I feel like going to different things is how we've come into our own. And yeah, it's a very good point, and I feel like it resonates for a lot of people. And Maryze, I was curious to know your thoughts on the concept of networking, because you've gone from very DIY to a very close network of people through Hot Tramp, which is your label that you work with. And I just wanted to know what that means in the context of your world and your community collective.
Yeah, I would love to share some of my wise old acquired knowledge that I've gained through all my many years of age. No, but yeah, I really agree with a lot of what Meg said. And I think that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned that I would tell anyone coming into any form of entertainment industry is do not feel like you need to work with bad, shitty people. Because there are a lot of people who do not have your best interests in mind and who don't really see you, you know, as a person or as an artist. They're just kind of seeing you as a filling whatever slot they need you to fill. And that's something that I definitely found, you know, when I was starting out, when I was a teen. I felt like I had to jump through these hurdles. Like I was like, okay, this person's kind of creepy, or this person, I've heard some weird stuff, but that's what I have to do to get into the scene. And if I've learned anything, especially since coming to Montreal, is you can create your own scene, you can create your own community and your own team. And your people who are going to honor you and fuel you to grow, and that you can have a really healthy working and also personal relationship with are out there. And that's a big thing with Hot Tramp is, you know, I met Sarah who runs Hot Tramp just playing at the Bog, like a DIY event, and she was doing event promotion and kind of creating her own brand. And I was like, oh, this is someone that I really respect, who's doing cool things, who respects me. And now I get to work with some of my best friends, and it's amazing. And I just wish that I had known sooner. I guess it's difficult the younger you are to kind of know your own worth. But I just hope that any new artist or any new person who's coming into event organization or whatever can just like find their own worth before, through their own knowledge, without having to feel like they need to prove something or go through these hurdles, because you don't have to put up with any kind of bad treatment, and there is a community out there that will support you.
So true. And I saw that Rebecca put finger snap. If I could snap, I would snap too. It's so true though, that I think a lot of us when we were younger probably would have wanted to know that we don't need to jump through hoops for other people, and that we will find our sense of ourselves and each other through these natural connections that we make with, you know, lovely people like all of you in this panel. So thank you for sharing that remark, Maryze. And speaking of creating your own path, I wanted to touch on a few more of you who are working on some projects. Sisi, did you want to take the floor to talk about a recent impactful project that you've been working on, or one that you're working towards?
Of course. Right now I'm working on a couple things. I'm working on a book, illustrated book, comic book called Hell High, which is gonna be a very queer, sexual oriented book of illustration with some text, some poems, some stuff. I'm also working on a second EP, so I'm also excited on that. It's very going slowly but surely. And also I'm working on Unicorn with some of my gals, and it's gonna be on the 17th of August. I'm like, oh my God, it's in a week literally. And the lineup is stacked, and it's gonna be amazing. I can't wait to just like showcase all the people that we got. And I don't know, like it's the second year that Montreal is doing a queer section to their festival. And for me, as someone who like kind of didn't had gigs for, I had a couple like online gigs, but mostly like didn't had gigs for almost a year and a half. Like for me, it was really important to try to stack as much as we can to kind of like, because I know there's so much people that have been working on stuff and that have stuff to say, stuff to express. So it's gonna be like an explosion of like expression. And yeah. And I wanted to also make a point of what we were just talking about networking and connection. I know I look young, but I'm not that young. I've been in Montreal for a long time, and the best advice I could give is don't have too much preconceived idea of who people are until you have met them. Because I have, even in my own experience, I was meeting people and I was like, oh, these people would never book me. Like, or like kind of being pessimist even before asking, even before doing something. And a lot of time people are like, oh, you didn't book me yet, or you didn't do this yet. And I'm like, I don't know everyone. Of course, like nobody knows everyone. And also, if you actually come to my event and talk to me, I'm super open, and I'm super open to include people in the boat. So it's like, I feel like the best way to have the best networking system is just to stay very open, but still guarded to bullshit. But like open yourself a little bit. And, you know, if you open yourself and someone is not nice or is kind of bullshitting, that's what it is. Like it ends up there. And one way or another, we're all dealing with each other in the community. So if it's not for a booking or something, you're gonna soon realize who is who and what are their intention. But most of the time, people who are doing like parties and organization, their intention is not to block people to have a gig or have their coin. Most of people in the queer community are there to uplift each other. So really don't be shy to hit up everyone, and also send your mixes, send what you're doing. Like I was someone who was very shy to send emails before, because I'm not a very well-spoken person and I don't write really well. So I was really shy. And now I'm just like, whatever, like just do it and see what happens. And sometimes I get booped and sometimes I get it. So it's just like the most you put eggs in your basket, the most you're gonna have stuff and you're gonna know people and whatsoever. So that's all.
Totally well said. Malika, one of the co-founders of Also Cool, and I always joke about how the world is really just like 20 people emailing each other, and that we all have to stop being so shy and just be like, hello, because we're all really in this together. And I totally agree that putting yourself out there is so scary. And I still will read an email over like 40 times before I send it, but it's important. And I think that making that first effort really makes it easy on other people too. Yeah, so relatable. I agree, Rebecca. Al, I was wondering if you wanted to share a project that you've been working on, since we've been talking about mixes and sending things to each other. I'm curious what you've been up to.
Well, actually, I want to start with something that already happened, because it is like the biggest project I've worked on, like not by myself, because I was with other people, but I was like the one doing, you know, the most of the work in a way. I'm just going to send the link actually, but I'm going to just say what it is. Yeah, it was with Trans-Pacific Express also. And we did do a very big event before. I'm just going to say what it is. Hold on. Sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's called the Trans-Pacific Night in Town. It was commissioned by Festival Accès Asie, actually, where they kind of like trying to bring in a younger audience to their festival. So they kind of like picked us for this, which is funny. But we did like, we created a few songs in city pop, like Japanese city pop, Korean city pop, and then more recent stuff like Korean hip hop. And talked about how the music is made, the history, these kind of things. But mostly from like a music point of view, like not like a class, more like just us as musicians being like, oh, I love this beat or something, but in more details. Yeah, so that was like a pretty big project, and it was all online. But yeah, if you want to check it out, I just put the link. But yeah, we did do a big event before COVID in 2019. That was like how Trans-Pacific started, was like there was a talk and then there was a dance party, but we kind of were stopped by COVID. So that's just like the main big thing we've done recently. Then upcoming things, I am playing for a queer party on the 29th of August, if you want to write down the date. And it's for Blush. It's for this 2 years anniversary of Blush, and also the launch of Garçon Manqué, which is like a butch or gender non-conforming fashion line. So I'm very excited. I've also been missing playing some more like pop and like hip hop and R&B sounds. So I'll be playing some of that. And also, is this also posted anywhere right now? Or like, can I say things in detail? I don't want like, because I'm playing also something this weekend, but I don't know how much I can disclose, you know what I mean?
That's okay. You could give us a little sneak peek.
Okay, well, it's been, the name has been brought up earlier, it's Vault. I'm not really gonna say where it is yet, but you can follow me. I'll post about it on my IG. Yeah, it's on Saturday.
Keep
So
your
that's what
pulse
I'm
on
up
Elle's
to.
IG.
Someone will find out some, like, yeah, no one worry. If you want to be there, you will know.
Yeah,
It's like a breeze in the wind. You know what I mean? You'll figure it out.
More like
Yeah.
you're right. Everyone is friends.
good. Yeah. Well, I don't even know all the details yet, so I'm not sure.
That's
It's gonna be
fun,
very
though.
useful.
You
But
will
I'll post.
also-
Sorry.
I said you will also find out.
Yes, exactly.
It
That's
all
what's happening.
at the same time.
Because I was booked for this today, so that's why it's very last minute. But yeah, if you want to come rave this weekend, don't know where to go party, this is happening. There's several things happening this weekend, but this is one of them, and I'm part of it.
It's so nice to hear that several things are happening in a weekend again.
Yeah.
And to close off, Willow, do you have any recent projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I was trying to type in the chat to Elle that it's awesome that you're going to be teaching that, but I said doing, so it'll be awesome that you're doing as well. Yeah, I kind of wanted to take this opportunity to talk about like kind of this ideation I'm having around a project I'm working on. I don't want to talk too much about the project because it is very early stages, but I thought that I'd perhaps introduce people more to like my work and my practice and where I come from. And I wanted to start by saying that like it's really exciting to me to have these conversations. I come from like a personal ethos, energy of community. My mom has worked in HIV/AIDS community work all my life. And so I was raised by, you know, queer people who survived a plague. And that's something that's really special and important to me. And I think after COVID, I've been thinking a lot about how people survive tragedy and how during I heard Fran Lebowitz say something that really stuck with me about how after the AIDS epidemic, we didn't just lose artists, we lost audiences. And like some of the best audiences that the world had ever seen, people who were so driven and excited by the work of people they admired. And I think that's something that's really special to me in terms of community. As I mentioned, it's not just us, the artists, it's also us as the audience, and audiences in general really make everything we do possible, and make it worth doing. Of course, you don't want to throw a rave that no one goes to. And so I've, you know, been working on a project where I really want to capture this love of community, and I really want to, you know, in everything I do, in every conversation I have, remind us that, you know, we have survived something that's really terrifying and awful and horrible, but also I think reminded me personally why I love my community. And Maryze, it was funny that you mentioned Poisson Noir, and that's where I started in Montreal. I worked with Poisson Noir for like 3 years. I was the only Black person, which was super fun, which was why I joined. But just even thinking about like, you know, where we were 5 years ago as a community, where I would like go to raves or go to parties, not just raves. Everyone loves to call everything a rave. Not everything is a rave, but I would go to parties. I would go out and I would be like the only Black person in a room. And y'all, I'm not representative of all Black people. I should not be the only one in the room. It should not just be me. And that is something that I'm really excited about now, that I'm never the only one anymore. And when I am, someone else is calling it out, not me. And I just think that as a community, we've evolved so much. And I think we have really, in Montreal specifically, because that's where I've obviously spent the past 6 years, I don't know, I just feel so sentimental about like where we're going. And I think I'm writing, the project I'm working on is a play, and I want to write a play about, I want to, it is happening. I am presently doing it, write a play about a group of people organizing a rave before the end of the world, because I think that every night that we go out now, I just think like, if the world ended tomorrow, like this would be okay. Not it would be okay. Let me not be nihilistic. It would not be okay, but it's just beautiful to see what we do for each other and how far we're willing to go almost to be together. And because I'm the last person who's sharing my work, I really wanted to end on kind of that note that like, we've really done something, y'all. We really survived. We really did it. I didn't think we were gonna do it, but we did it, and we're all here, and we have made strides that I have never seen. And I just think that, you know, I'm really excited to hear about everything that y'all are doing, and excited to, you know, support you and buy your music and go to your parties. And, you know, I think that's something that's really cool, that we're like rising from the literal ashes of a pandemic and of, you know, a climate crisis. And well, we're not rising from those ashes yet, but we will. I'm just optimistic about the future, and I wanted to share that.
That's a great note to end on. You said you're sentimental about where we're going, and I feel like that's beautiful and encapsulates everything that I wanted to drive through this panel. So thank you all so much for being so candid in conversation, for sharing what all of you are doing. Yeah, I agree with Rebecca in the chat. Everyone who created anything in the past 18 months is my hero. Agreed. All of you are heroes within your own right. And it's such a privilege and an honor to share a space with you, even though it's on the Zoom, which hopefully will be maybe one of the last times we can be in online. Thank you so much to everyone who's attended this panel and who will watch it in the future if you're watching it now. Surprise, this is recorded. We really appreciate your support, and thank you so much again. This makes me really excited to look forward into the future. And yeah, I will be on the Ottawa to Montreal party bus as soon as possible. For all of you that I haven't met in real life yet, I'm ready to meet all of you and have been ready to meet all of you in real life. So thank you again. Everyone who's attended, thank you so much. You can follow all of the panelists online on Instagram. We've connected them through the Also Cool page, so please follow everything that they're doing. They're all doing amazing stuff in the community, whether it be promoting shows, doing music, doing live performances, and various creative forums. All of these people in the panel are incredible, and I really look forward to seeing what all of you continue to do after we've rose from the ashes of the pandemic, because it is happening. We are rising. It is happening. Thank you, everyone. Again, super honored to share this space with you. And before we leave, we have a closing message from Fierté. So I'm going to play that. Please bear with me while I figure out this Zoom situation. You'd think I'd be good at Zoom by now, but I think it is a labor of love still for me anyways.
Oh, while this is happening, I just want to say I've heard mural thrown around a bit. It's like my day job now, so I'll probably see some of you around.
Amazing.
So, hi.
Okay, it looks like this video is ready, so I'm going to share my screen and then I will play it. So merci Fierté Montreal, and thank you everyone for joining us. You can find us all online at alsocoolmag and alsocoolmag.com. Please check out all of our panelists. We've linked all of their information in the chat. So before we log off, make sure you copy down all those links because you'll want to be following everyone and what they're up to. Here are some closing remarks from our co-presenter, Fierté Montreal. Yay, thank you to our sponsors. Before we go, I'd just like to give a quick round of applause to everyone for participating in this online panel. We made it through the Zoom, and hopefully our next one can be in real life. Yay!
Thanks, everyone. You're all really cool, and I hope to meet you in real life and maybe organize something or do something at some point.
Yeah.
Very honored to have chatted with you all.
Yeah.
Very honored. Likewise. So much fun. Thank you. Merci tout le monde.
Thank you.
Merci. Thanks, also cool.
Thank you.
À bientôt. Bye.
Okay, I just like wanted the people to leave. Oh, Rebecca texted me. Do I leave now? I think we can leave now.
I wasn't sure. I wanted